In today's episode, we are going to talk all about lead generation, how to generate leads for free, how to generate leads with paid ads, and then also how to sell those leads once you generate them. So this is going to be a really interesting episode. Stay tuned.
If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now, let's get to it with today's guest.
All right, welcome to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. My name is Todd Getz, and with me today is Todd Schuhart. Am I saying that right, Schuhart?
Schuhart, yeah. Second C, we trick you with it. So,
Well, Todd, welcome to the podcast. Give our audience a little introduction about who you are and what you do.
so Todd Schuchart, founder of Razor Ridge Leads, and we are a life insurance specific lead gen agency.
And I know that there's a lot of money to be made in insurance leads. And this is a really neat thing that even though it's, a lot of our audience is coaches, course creators, online solopreneur type of people, lead generation is one of those universal things. Once you learn to do it for one industry, you could pretty much do it for any industry. So this is something that we were really interested in talking about because I know back at the very beginning of when my wife and I started our business, figuring out lead generation early was the number one key to our success later on. So first thing, if somebody wants to get started with generating leads online and they've got nothing set up, maybe they've been doing referrals and networking the whole time, what are some of the basics of lead generation that you need to know when you're first getting started?
Well, the obvious, you got to know what you're generating your leads for. I mean, you need to know it, not, oh, I know what the word is, right? You've got to be in the niche, or as some people say, niche, but I'm a niche guy, so we'll say niche. You got to be deep. You got to be deep in the niche. And then I think the thing that you need to understand is, and one of the biggest lessons I got in copywriting, because that's really what this is, right? We're selling or teasing what we do in a way that benefits the user of what we have to offer. So the thing that I learned early in copywriting is you write like you're speaking to one person, not some mystical group of people, or, it's not small business owners. It's one small business owner that you're talking to, and it's identifying the pain, beating on that pain drum or poking it just enough, and then hinting at the delivery of the relief, right? I think the really great stage sellers understand what and why and how to keep how behind the curtain, right? So that's lead gen. It's what and why. How, you got to get on with me to do that. I mean, we have to have a conversation, right, to make that happen. So I think really it's foundational. It's you have to understand your pain for who you're serving, and you have to understand how what you do benefits them. And the better you understand something in technical terms, the easier you can make it layman, right? And I think that's the other piece. We see a lot of people, especially in digital marketing and life insurance has more acronyms than I care to. I mean, it's like, and if you're talking, well, CPMs and CPLs and CPAs and CT, and if you're doing all that in your marketing, nobody knows what you're talking about. So if you're going to introduce an industry term in your ad, you have to explain it before you can use it, right? So we have to, and that perceived value of being able to educate gives that, it starts the beginning of know, like, and trust.
I think that concept of speaking to one person, that is so important because for some niches or niches more than others, it's easier or harder to do. I know that when we talk to a lot of life coaches, mindset coaches, even health coaches sometimes. A lot of times what they're speaking to is so broad and so generic. And the reason they're doing it is because they don't want to exclude a potential sale. So, for example, with a life coach, oftentimes we'll ask them, okay, so who do you help and what goal do you help them accomplish? And it's so hard for them to just nail down a specific thing. And typically what the first answer they come up with is, well, whatever they want to do, we help them to do, right? Whatever makes them unhappy in life, we kind of fix that and blah, blah, blah. And really the first part of my offer is helping them to identify what it is that makes them unhappy and how to find the thing that gives them purpose in life. And so what they're getting is certainty. And it's like, well, yeah, but no. Like we need something a little
Totally
more
no.
specific, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like that first offer a lot of times seems to be, hey, you're going to get certainty and clarity. But on what? People don't pay money for certainty and clarity. People need certainty and clarity to take that first step even. So if they're coming to it confused and they don't have a clear goal with a clear problem that you're solving and all that stuff, then you've just got a confused prospect with no idea how you're going to take them from point A to point B. It's just like, hey, at the end of this, you're going to be better, right? We're not sure how it's going to happen, but it's going to be better. That's a real tough sell to make.
You have somewhere, but depending on who you talk to, you have somewhere between 4 and 7 seconds to grab them, right? So if you're a fitness coach and you want men and women, then we're going to talk to somebody about their carb problem, right? You want a broader brushstroke, then talk about the sugar craving, talk about the lack of sleep or the lack of motivation, right? If you want to get very specific, you can talk about men in their 50s with bellies, right? How do we get rid of the dad bod, right? Very specific, but you want to broaden that up, then it's men in carbs, men in sugar, men who are busy entrepreneurs. You're still speaking to one person to an issue, right? And life coaches, I'm a certified coach myself. I think that the things that you still have to come to the pain point, if you've coached anybody, and hopefully you have before you start running ads, why were they seeing you? Why did they pay you and continue to come to you? What was the issue you uncovered there, right? The thing that when we talk about these things, people are like, well, I want to do more. That's awesome. But you're writing one message to one user. You can write another message to a different person now. You can go wide. You don't have to stay so hyper-focused, but your messaging to be effective needs to be specific within that subset. So for us, in the life space, we do all kinds of stuff. We don't just sell life insurance because you're going to die. We talk about, the things you can do while you're alive. We talk about how you can replace your kid's college fund and also position them for retirement without spending any more money. Talk about leaving the inheritance piece, or what happens if something happens to you and you're still here and you need money. Like all these little subsets within the niche that for the right person makes it incredibly sticky, right? And let's be honest, lead gen without conversion, it's just another bill. Well, I want to talk to her. You can't. Pick your top 3 things that you hear the most of. And if you don't know, hit the Google machine and it'll tell you. Hit a GPT, right? It'll tell you. What are the 10 most searched issues people are looking for a coach for? And now you've got your talking points and start crafting your messaging. It's not hard, right, Todd? I mean,
yeah, that completion match, the chat GPT, especially if you have any SEO tools that give you search volume, can be super valuable. I know I've done searches in the past about how to lose weight just to see what the completion matches are, and looking at the other suggestions from Google, like one of those is how to lose face fat. It's one of the top searches. And when I look at the SEO score and all the SEO stuff behind it, it's like it's one of those keywords that's still easy to rank for, and it's like got hundreds of thousands of searches per month. And so there's a huge opportunity there. But think about your ideal prospect. They're on Google, they're on YouTube, they're typing something into the search bar to try to find a specific solution to a specific problem. What are they typing in there? That's what we want to find out. But even think about somebody who is scrolling through Facebook, scrolling through Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and they come across one ad or one post that says, hey, want to improve your health and not feel so bad and have more energy? And it's like, yeah, I want all the things, but whatever, right? And I'm going to keep scrolling. But if I scroll across something and it says, "Hey, how to lose face fat in as little as 3 or 4 weeks," and that's a problem for me, and that's been one of those things that subconsciously like bugs me every day. Every time I look in the mirror, I'm like, "Oh, look at this," right? Wish I could get rid of this. Well, that's something that's speaking directly to me, to that problem that I got, and you better believe I'm clicking on that.
Yeah, and if the niche is big enough, I mean, holy cow, you could eat off of that for years. And then at some point, you're just the skinny face guy. So it works. Now I'm worried about how fat my head is.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, one of the other things you mentioned was speaking layman's terms. And, again, that's one of those things that is so important because I know that with my wife and I, like my wife manages the sales team. She does some of the sales calls, but I'm the one that does the ads and a lot of the marketing stuff on the back end. So we have to talk constantly all the time about, okay, what are people saying on the sales calls? What are their pain points, and what's the way that they're articulating it in the sales call? Like, what are the actual words that they're using? Because I think that's another really important part is not just speaking their language, but using the exact words and phrases that they're using.
Yeah, 100%.
Because that's the thing. One of the things we figured out was when you can articulate things the exact way that they're saying it in their heads, that they think about themselves, that they're articulating it on a sales call or something. If you can take those words, put it into a post, put it into an ad, and people see that like that, they feel like you're reading their mind, like you understand them, right? That's one of the other things is that they need to feel like you understand them and what their problem is. And the more you can do that in those layman terms and simplify it. Now, one of the other things I think you kind of touched upon was you can generate a lead, but that lead doesn't buy. And that there's more that needs to kind of happen on the back end in order for that to happen. But can you kind of go into that a little bit? Like, because I know that when my wife and I generated our first leads online and then no sales came in, it was like really confusing for us. We're like, okay, well, they're a lead. They should be interested. Why are they not buying?
Age old, why don't they all convert thing? Yeah, it's funny. I say this all the time. If all the leads converted, you wouldn't get them. I would close every one of them all on my own, and I'd be living in my Scrooge McDuck vault, swimming around in gold bullion. The reality is that, and especially in America, this is more of an American thing, but I'm going to do this with all the intention, and I may very well mean it, but it's just not today, right? So I am interested, but I might be interested in actually pulling the trigger 18 months from now. So the question isn't really about will it convert, it's when it'll convert and how patient are you to not ruin it. And I always equate this, Todd, to dating. You get the girl's phone number, you're over the moon excited, she's beautiful and everything you're hoping she'll ever be. In your head, you've created this romantic thing already. And 5 minutes later, you've texted her 4 times, emailed her, and called her, and she's going, oh my God, this is overwhelming and nuts. Block, 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 block. And it's over before it starts. And then we teach her, the lead, to never give the right information again. But, for sales reps, it's kind of the same idea. And I like the dating analogy because we've all been on a bad date. We've all had somebody just a little too extra for us, right? So it's the same with prospects. This is still 2 people interacting. So the biggest tool that you have as somebody working a lead is consistently patient. So we lean into automations. We've got a sequencing that runs 24 months. I've got AI that walks in and takes it over for me at a certain point in the process. And it's designed to continue to get us in front of the prospect. One of the best things you can do after about 4 months of trying is to send the takeaway text. Hey, Todd, I don't want to make an enemy. I know I can help you, but when you're ready, feel free to reach out. You know where I'm at. I can't tell you how many times people go, oh, I'm so sorry. I really want to do this. Can we talk tomorrow? And if I could start with the takeaway, I would, because it's got that much juice to it. But it doesn't make sense as your first interaction with somebody. So I think that the big thing is consistently be in front of them without being crazy dater. Right? And have some patience and understand that on the other end of that lead, there's a life going on that you don't even begin to understand, right? You don't know how many kids they have, what they're jockeying, how many jobs they're working, whatever's going on over there, there's a lot. And you staying in front of them, we do a lot of value add stuff. Like I love when somebody gets on the phone with my team and they're like, I'm ready to sign up. I don't even need to see the pitch. I've spent a lot of time with you guys. Or they tell my sales team, oh, I know Todd. Well, they do. They've spent a lot of time with me online, right? They've spent a lot of time with my content and kind of all those pieces that that do that nurturing for us. So I think that for everybody, don't ruin it because you're being a spaz, right? You just got to chill. You got to kick back a little bit, right? And we all know things that are worth having you work for. So just, relax a little bit and get more than 3 leads. That's always going to help.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times we'll have somebody come in and they'll say, yeah, I ran this webinar and nobody bought, so I need something else, or I need somebody to look at it. And we'll look at it and we'll say, okay, well, this seems okay. How many people did you get registered for that? And how many people attended? And they'll say something like, 13 people registered and we had like 5 or 6 join, but nobody bought. And like, okay, you need bigger numbers than that. Like you need hundreds, right? Put at least 200 or 300 people through this webinar. Then if you don't make any sales, then come back to me. But until that happens, you just need more numbers. When you, at the end of the day, I think when the conversions, depending on the price of your offer, but we're talking about very small numbers of actual sales compared to leads, and you still got a 7-figure business. If you can convert, on a lower ticket webinar, if you're selling something $300 to $500 and you're converting 3%, 5% of total registrants on cold traffic, you're doing pretty well. And I mean, 'cause that's where Leah and I were converting with our very first webinar offer to sell a $300 course. And we made a 7-figure year out of that. For high ticket, could be even less, could be 0.5%, could be 1%. And you've got a 7-figure business. But that's the thing. I think a lot of people don't understand those numbers sometimes. And when not every single lead buys, they think something's wrong. Let's get into how to actually start generating these leads. And let's start with free, because I think that's where everybody wants to start. They don't want to have to invest money on something that they don't feel like they don't know if it's going to work or not. What's a good way to start generating leads for free?
Okay, so I'm going to give you the canned front end answer that everybody knows, right? Work your social, work your warm market. Tell people what you're doing. If you can't tell people that you know what you're doing and make it clear, you're not ready to tell anybody else what you're doing, right? And we're all terrified, right? The trolls on the internet are real and they're violent. They're going to get you. But you got to put yourself out there. So part of that process is finding your voice, right? You've got to produce content. You've got to put it out in the world and you got to get feedback on it. And what happens is you start to learn how to do it. You start to get really comfortable in front of a camera. You start to feel like I can relay a solid message now, right? So once we have that, then we want to move into, you can do paid and all that kind of fun stuff to scale with predictability. But one of my favorites, my all-time favorite, and I've done this throughout my career, even before the internet. So if that gives you an idea of how young I am, it's finding your audience, borrow your audience from somebody who has it. So for us, like back in the day, the first time I did this, it was totally on accident. I was BJ's Wholesale Club. Are you familiar with like a Costco? But yeah. And we were selling home security systems at the time. And that, like is most businesses, you need leads. Like if you don't have leads in that business, you're done before you even get started. I don't have anyone to sell this to. I'm in trouble. So I needed leads. We had a guy who we called it hawking leads at the mall for, win a TV or, that type of thing. And those were mid at best. But it kept the sales team calling and, kind of working. So I went to BJ's and I said, how about if you give me a table and I will do a whole presentation about home security and I will renew every one of your members' memberships for the year who puts a system in their house. And we built the rest of that business off of that leads program. When I did some mortgage leads, God, I don't even know, decade ago now. I joined one of the trade associations for mortgages. I presented our offer and things to their board, and we became a certified partner of theirs. And in doing so, they did all the marketing for me. So I just worked their membership. And you want to talk about laying down? It was like the easiest thing in the world. Hey, how you doing? I'm calling from X, Y, and Z. I'm a preferred partner of, here's what we do. Take my money, Todd. Oh, okay. Right. And it's because I'm not trading on the reputation of myself. I'm trading on the endorsement I got of the organization that they're a part of. I don't care what you do, who you're looking for. There is a group or a trade association attached to that somewhere. So I feel that paid advertising is the best way to scale because it's controllable. I can scale it up tomorrow. I can turn it down the next day. You get into organic, although I love organic and I've built plenty of businesses off of it. You know the deal. The runway is long, right? And it's not as predictable. And you may wake up one day and you've been dethroned because you didn't produce content for 4 months in a row, right? And now you're sideways. Or, the trade association you run out of people there. You've exhausted their book or their client list. So you have to be prepared to move into that paid space at some point, right? Because that's the only way you can control. And then, I'll tell you the last thing, Todd, is you've got to understand what your cost to acquire is. A customer, not a lead. Everybody looks, when you say, 13 people signed up, they're looking at the lead cost and they're freaking out. And that's the wrong number. If you're looking at lead cost, that's like looking at the click and optimizing a campaign based on how many people clicked your ad. That's not how it goes, right? That's such a prehistoric analytic at this point. How many leads do you need? Okay, so you said 3%. Great. So you want to sell 3 deals. How many people do you need on that webinar right now? Pretty easy math, right? So the cost to acquire now becomes the driving force. So once you get out of that free space or you've exhausted or borrowed an audience that is just, you've exhausted it, you've got to be prepared to move to that next level and take it to a scalable kind of opportunity. So that's my favorite on the free though. And I kid you not, I built and rebuilt sales organizations before I started on my own, and can't tell you how many of them I built anchoring somebody else's client base because we were complementing to their business, right? And there's 2 ways to do it. You either pay them, you grease them, right? So it's a benefit to their business, or you are a value add to what they're doing and not your perception of value, their perception of value. So if it's not a perceived value, then it better be money. And if that's a rev share, then you better be straight with it and not sneak them. Or try and not pay on one thing because it'll cost you the whole show and it's not worth it. And then the last thing on that is when you're cutting those deals, make sure that you're thinking about, am I still going to like this when I'm writing a $40,000 check to these guys versus a $4 check? And if you can future proof it, then you're not going to say, I'll give you 50%. Because right now when you're starving and you need money for sandwiches, 50% of anything is better than nothing. But when you're flush and you're writing a 50% check and you're still doing all the deliverables, it becomes very painful and it's unsustainable for most people at that point. So some things to be careful of when you do that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And the other people's audiences, right? Getting in front of other people's audiences that they've already built, that they've already warmed up. I agree. That's like one of the best ways when you're getting started to just jumpstart your lead generation. Well, it's like your dating analogy. If we were to compare like cold ads or, paid ads to something, I'd almost think that would be like walking up to somebody at the bar and just throwing out a pickup line and see if it works, right? It's like you're approaching somebody cold. They don't know who you are. They've never seen you before. You're likely to get rejected most of the time versus if you've got a friend, like a mutual friend that says, hey, Leah, I know this guy, Todd, I think he'd be a great first date. I think he'd be a great date. Very smart, very good looking, chiseled features, built, perfect dude. You should go on a date with him. You're probably going to get the first date at least, where if you had approached that same person at the bar and use a pickup line or something, you might have gotten rejected. So it's like like you said, you're borrowing that authority. You're borrowing their trust, their rapport. So it gets you a lot further, a lot quicker. But on the flip side of that, they've only got so many friends that they can introduce you to. So at some point, we need to get into paid ads if you want to keep scaling. And I agree. Like our first 7-figure year, that was all because of paid ads, 100%. So how do we start making that transition from generating leads for free to making this work with paid ads?
Well, you got to be listening, right? Because we got to figure out who we're going to talk to about what. So as you're going through these, somebody else's audience, you're going to start to get that product knowledge or your copywriting hat on. And as soon as somebody has a pain point, you got to write it down. I don't care how big or little you think it is, right? And then we start to craft messaging around, okay, cool. So how would I help somebody get a skinnier head? As soon as you said that, my first thought was, and I'm a big fitness exercise guy. And I'm like, how do you make your head smaller? And I'm poking my face going, how would I, and now I guarantee you, Todd, after this call, I'm Googling how to make my head skinnier just to see how people would do it. Right. So it's that kind of discovery mindset. I'm a life coach and somebody said they're having a hard time because they lost somebody. Well, who was it? Right. And it's not have you lost somebody, it's have you lost a parent and you're having a hard time dealing with it, even at 50, right? And that kind of thing. So it's the sub niche within it's that peeling of the onion and then really starting to craft your messaging so that when you do write that ad, it's resonating with people. So I think it starts with the listening piece. Platforms are easy. I don't care. You're going to find a platform you're going to just kind of groove with better than others. The leads are going to come off it. You're going to have a better just kind of run with those versus we see it now. I've got certain agents, they love Facebook. They close Facebook at a clip. They can't close a TikTok lead and save their life. And I've got guys or girls that do really well with YouTube or really well with search, both Google properties, but they don't do there's not a lot of crossover there. And you may find that you feel, this is my favorite part, you feel like you do really well selling to women, but when you actually look at the numbers, your higher ROI is with men, right? So it's a matter of really being hyper focused on what your client base looks like and dialing in the message and then staying incredibly alert as you're going through this process to be able to optimize everything that you're doing. And I mean everything, right?
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, because I think the thing that you have to realize when you are, doing the networking, the referrals, getting in front of other people's audiences, you're able to get away with bad copy. You're able to get away with marketing that isn't so good because you're relying on the authority and the relationship that the other person has already built in order to generate the lead and make the sale. You're relying on the relationship versus marketing. And you need to take advantage of that time when you're able to do that. Like you said, to listen, to see what their pain points are. How are they articulating it? What are they saying? Ask them things like, why me? Why would you want to buy from me versus somebody else? That's one of the things we always ask in a sales call. When somebody says they want to join, it's like, okay, well, why us? Why not somebody else? Why now? Why is this important for you to do right now versus why can't you wait a few months? So all those things, it's important to get that information because you're going to need that in order to create good marketing later on so that you can run paid ads that are going to be effective.
100%. Yeah, this is your marketing runway, right? This is your R&D. You're getting paid to do it though. That's the beauty. You're monetizing your learning. And that's really the trick, right? So you can feed yourself along the way and get prepared to really scale this thing where you need it to go. And then the obvious is you better have your pitch dialed in. Right. So marketing is one thing, but if everybody gets there and you start screaming at people, it's going to go sideways fast. Right. So the pitch is everything after you get them in front of you. Now you really got to be able to do what you need to do on that part of it. So we optimize in stages, meaning we've got someone else's audience. We're optimizing our offering. We're working on our chit chat and things like that. We're working on our offer. Right. And we're working on optimizing how we're delivering our offer. We're getting feedback saying, oh, that was confusing for them. I'm going to make it sing a little better. We work on those pieces. Then we get our ads up and we're always looking and optimizing audience and messaging and creative and all the pieces that go there. And then you take this big deep breath and you go, I got leads coming in. And then the work starts. That's a lot. And that's not even the beat. Like you just stretched. Now we're going to do the workout. Right? Because this is the piece that moves on infinitely. So we've got to be able to talk to folks in a way that is also compelling, which really, truthfully, if your ads are what and why, then you start what, why, and how, right? That's what the pitch is. The pitch is to teach them the how so that they sign up with you to do what it is that you're hoping to help them accomplish. And I think that people get lost a lot of times in the sales piece. So don't try to be sales. That's my first advice on that. And just have a conversation with somebody. So much, I talk to very smart people like you all the time. And all of a sudden they go, oh, this is sales. And they go, what do I say? Well, you just told me 10 minutes ago, everything. It was beautiful. Yeah, but that wasn't sales. This is sales. What do I say now? The same thing you said before, and stop pretending you're on a sales call. This is all about making friends and discovery and that kind of fun thing. So if your messaging on the front end is right and your audience segments match your message, then your presentation conversation should match that as well. So now we have synergy going all the way through. I'm not going to bring you in on an umbrella ad and sell you a sneaker. It just doesn't line up, right? So you have to make sure that you're paying attention all the way through the process so your message is matching. And I see so many disconnects when we hire third-party marketers who truly don't understand what we do, and their messaging is not on brand for us. And then we get in front of the lead, and the lead's like, what are you talking about? I'm all set. I'll think about it, need to sleep on it, pray about it, talk to my cat about it. You're dead in the water. Those are the indicators that something's gone awry. Could all the way back to the ad, right? And how you're coming through that process. So that's the fun part, though, of what we do. I think in entrepreneurship, that's the part I like the most, is that building and optimizing piece, because that's where the wins and loses happen. And then the last thing on that part, Todd, is be wrong fast, be happy about it. We beta a lot of things in what we do. And I love when we screw it up, because I'm heading in the right direction, right? We just put that system, keep going, keep going, keep going. And next thing you know, you've got this smooth running machine. And it only happened because you embraced the failure. So don't expect this to be smooth as butter, because if it is, you're doing something wrong, or you're not making money, or you're really not trying, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's one of those things I think people are afraid, especially when it comes to like paid ads. They're afraid to get it wrong because they might, quote, waste money. And it's like, no. That's a part of the process. And the thing is, like you said, the more times you get it wrong, the better you're going to be at this when you get it right. You're going to dial it in to a point where other people, 99% of other people that are your competitors, have not. A lot of people have seen the first Iron Man movie. If you remember the part where at the very end, how Tony Stark won that battle with the other guy, with the bad guy who had his old Iron Man suit, or who had his own Iron Man suit, right? Is that he flew him all the way up into like the stratosphere of the Earth, where it got really cold. And Tony Stark knew at that point that, okay, well, what happens up here is that it gets so cold that your suit freezes up and can't operate anymore. And Tony had tested things to a point, and he'd failed so many times because he had run into that problem before. He had already fixed it in his suit, but it hadn't fixed it in the other person's suit, who had just hired other people to build it for him and had not really tested it. And so that's how he won a fight, is you just, up in the stratosphere, the other person's suit freezes, his is fine, he wins the fight. But that only happened because he had that experience. He had gone through all those failures and he had figured that out. And I know that's kind of like a long analogy, but that's really the way it works. The more times you can fail, the more you figure things out, and you're just that much further ahead, and you're able to respond quicker too. One of the other things that I think really gets you ahead and keeps you ahead in business is being adaptable. Well, if you've already done all that testing, you already know what doesn't work, you know why it doesn't work, you know the situations where things work and where they don't work, and you've done all that. When the market changes, when a new social media platform comes along, when there's a change in the algorithm, when this or that happens, and everybody else is panicking, well, if you've already gone through all that testing and you become adaptable, and you've already been through a similar situation, you already know how to pivot, and you're already 2 or 3 steps ahead of the competition because you've gone through that failure before. So yeah, I don't ever see it as wasting money whenever you have a failed ad campaign. That's just one of the things that you can test that, hey, now you can learn from it. One of the other questions I'd have is, we've talked about how to start with organic and then use that to eventually move into paid ads. Is it possible, or is it even smart to do, to just start with paid ads right away?
Absolutely. The difference is, do you have the financials to do that? If you do, then yeah. I mean, the only reason people bootstrap is because they don't have the backing, right? So it would have saved me 18 months had I had the finances to not have to bootstrap my business. The thing that's interesting about bootstrapping, though, which I think there's still an argument for doing that regardless of funding, is you really learn how to scale and grow this thing, so that when you do move into paid, those lessons that you bring to the paid piece, you're going to be miles and thousands of dollars ahead of somebody, or millions, depending on how much you're doing, ahead of somebody else. The biggest thing that I see a lot of times is that, small solopreneurs, coaches, course creators, we want to act like, or expect marketing like you see big brands doing. And, we want to do that stuff. And the reality is, that is the worst thing you can do. We're guerrilla, right? We're in the streets. We're hawking our goods and services. If you can't at some point measure an actual conversion back to the original ad spend, because this is on some mystical lift brand thing, you're not going to make it. You'll be dead before it's over. And to your point, Todd, you're talking about broadening your view. One of the worst things I ever see entrepreneurs do is they know what they're going to do. Nothing's going to change that. They're going to put the blinders on. They're going to go all the way to the point where they're completely broken, they're burned out, and they're done. The reality is, the beauty to the internet is it's taught us a lot about people, right? And the biggest thing that we can do with that whole process is make sure that we are listening to what the audience is telling us. And we're adjusting, because if you don't, you will spend yourself out of business. And don't be a know-it-all, because the world will absolutely adjust you, right? In the rudest of ways. So I think that, yes, you can start with paid, but boy, if you're not doing it yourself, and we can't do everything, right? I mean, at some point you want an expert to come in and help, because platforms don't help you either. Google says, oh, click over here, and now I'm spending $600 a day and I'm not getting anything. Well, that didn't help. Like we tell our clients all the time, do not do anything the platforms recommend. What's the platform's job, right? The platform's job is to sell you more stuff, and they did it, right? You did it because you don't know, and you feel like, oh, well, they're looking out for me. They're not. They're selling you something. So I think there's a lot of little pieces there to consider. But I would, for sure, at least in the beginning, if I had a media buyer, that's great, but I would be my creative. I would write my own creative. And maybe not design it if you're not a good designer, right? Like you can hire somebody to make it look pretty. But man, those words better be yours, because nobody's going to come in with the niche knowledge and passion that you're bringing to the table. And then you have to put these generic ads and you're like, well, paid doesn't work. It does. You just didn't have a good enough person in front of you, right? Or understand the concepts that you needed to focus on. So those would be my only kind of cautionary tales around starting with paid. And I wouldn't do any of, the things to avoid, right? Black hat SEO stuff. Anybody calls you and they say, I'm going to get you on page 1 tomorrow, and if you stop paying me, you'll be gone. That's not someone you want to talk to, right? I wouldn't run banner ads on Roku. You know what I mean? It's not the spot for it. I wouldn't run a newspaper or TV commercial or a radio. I wouldn't do any of it. I wouldn't get a magazine with my face on it, other than if I just want that to hang on my wall in my office. But don't think that is going to generate what you need to get where you want to go. The fastest path is get the lead, get it in the system, and get working it. And later, if you want to work on branding or reach campaigns, have at it. But understand what those are going to give you. And it's not going to be a direct hit to the bottom line like you need it in the beginning. So be careful, because there's a lot. Oh, it's so cheap. Yeah, it is. And it's going to cost you every penny of it, and you're not getting anything out of it. If you want to do the sports team down the street or whatever and sponsor them, do that because you want to be a nice person. Don't expect something from it. I can't tell you, back in the day, we go into these small businesses that I don't have any money for marketing. Oh, okay, cool. Have you done any of the booster clubs? Well, I'm in 4 of them. I sponsored a yearbook. I'm in, this other directory that only sits on this table at this particular place. And before you know it, they're at $600 a month. They've got nothing coming through the door from it, and they don't have any money. And the reality is they do. They've just given it to all the wrong places and people. It's heartbreaking, actually.
Now, one of the other interesting things that you kind of mentioned to me was that when you learn how to generate leads, instead of just trying to work them yourself and sell your own products and services, you can actually sell those leads to other companies for a profit. Is that right?
100%.
Okay, how does that work? Because that is something that has always fascinated me, is this idea of generating a lead, and then you don't even have to worry about making a sale. You just sell the lead to somebody else and you're making money.
I like this question. I even like the way you asked that. And I'm going to tell you, you do have to worry about that lead conversion, because if you're not focused on the lead converting, then you're just that booster club for that business, right? You're not generating any sales for them. So, and I say that because don't generate leads for a business that you don't know. No industry needs another one of those guys out there, right? Well, I can generate leads on Facebook. Of course you can, but do they convert? Are the messaging right? Is it lining up with that organization's sales methodology? Does the relief that their product or service match the pain points that you're mentioning in your creatives? And if it does, great. If it doesn't, which 9 out of 10 times it won't, you're dead in the water, right? And then for the marketer standpoint, you're getting chargebacks. You're giving the industry a bad name, which I can't stand. So I think the leads business it can be a good business. It can be a very challenging business too, though, because it's not just that I'm delivering the lead to you, that I've already done the effort and invested the money to do so. I'm now 100% relying on you doing your part. Are you calling that lead within that speed to lead window of 5 to 7 minutes of its creation? Are you continuing to chase and work those leads patiently over time? Can you even sell? Do you get on the phone and everybody hates you right away? They don't even want to look at you, right? Is that like what are we working with? And there are so many factors on the other side of that lead equation. So you have the client things, right? Like, yeah, I want it, but maybe not today. And now you got a sales guy who says your leads suck. And the problem is what you want to say to them is, no, you can't sell. But that's going to end the relationship anyways, right? So there's a skills gap that you can't account for, and it's in between your lead and their chair, right? It's the practitioner. So it's tricky. For us, we do around 500,000 leads a year delivered, but I run weekly sales calls. I'm constantly working with our lead buyers. They don't work for me. These are our customers, but I'm always teaching how to convert leads, how to get conversations started, how to sell these leads, how to package and wrap. And every week I go live every week. I've done it for 5 years. It's the only thing. And if we didn't do that, Todd, we would have been out of business in probably 6 months. And then we built systems to help with those pieces. So a GHL backend with our overlay on the front end of automated lead nurturing, AI tools, all the kind of fun things that we have access to. So the leads business can be amazing. And there's all kinds of little ancillaries that you can do. So I don't charge for my trainings. I've got free sales training everywhere. I've got a whole course. I don't charge for it because that's not my business. I'm a leads guy, right? But I need my clients to convert leads to stay clients. So I'm also, because of what I do, I got licensed. I'm a licensed life insurance agent. I was a top closer. I worked my own leads. Everyone once told me my leads sucked, and I really was like, uh-oh, do they? I went out and got my insurance license. I got certified to sell this program they were selling, and I worked the leads that didn't qualify for them. So they're like, those didn't meet our criteria. I'm like, cool, I'll work the sawdust. I wrote $165,000 in my first 60 days. Never wrote an insurance policy before in my life. Became a top producer in the organization in a matter of 60 days. Went on to be one of their trainers for that particular product for like the next 6 months before we got too busy in the leads business. I couldn't do it anymore. So, I say all that because you can't tell me my leads suck. Not anymore. I'll take that lead and I'll close it. And then you and I got a problem, right? But that's what it takes. And, you talk to anybody that has scaled a leads business to any significant revenue, and they are that niche. I'm not going to wake up tomorrow and pretend I'm a dental lead gen guy, because I'm not, and if you're hearing this about life insurance leads and you've never sold a life insurance policy, understand what it takes to be an agent or to convert a lead, don't bother. There's enough of that already in the space of people that just, they don't care other than to sell the lead. So I think there's a lot there that you got to kind of unpack before you jump in and do it right.
Right. Because you're right. People don't think about that. And it hadn't occurred to me either that the person you're selling the leads to, they need to be able to close that lead. And if they can't close the lead, and it could be a number of reasons, it could be just that they have the wrong expectation about the conversion numbers and what those should be.
You were saying.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because like I said, when we first started generating our first leads online and we weren't making sales, it was like, well, they're a lead. If they're a lead, they're interested. If they're interested, why aren't they buying? Everybody should be buying if they're a lead. No. The numbers work exactly the opposite. So yeah, if they don't understand that, if they're coming in with the wrong expectation, that could be very bad for you. And like you said, people will charge back, they'll do all these things, and that's just a nightmare for you. So I love what you're doing with that second half of it about your coaching calls, and you're helping them on the back end to convert those leads, to help them with the sales. That's a part I hadn't considered that you could do or even should do, but that's genius. I love that idea, because you're right. It's one of those things that, it's just a win-win both ways. Now, when you're generating leads and when you're selling leads, how do you price that out? How do you know how much to sell a lead for? And I know it's different in different niches, but is there like if you generate a lead for $1, are you selling it for some multiple of that? Like, is it 3 or 5 times? Or if you know that closed sale is $1,000, are you looking to sell the lead for 200, like 1/5 of that? Like, how do you figure out how much are you selling those leads for?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And first is, I don't ever look at what the client's making, right? If they're making $10,000 on the sale, I make $50 on the lead. If that's my lead cost, then I'm happy with that. I'm even happier that they're making money. They're always going to make more than you, and they should, right? Because that's what they do. We want to empower them to make more money. We make money on volume, right? So I don't need one lead buyer. I want 300 lead buyers or 1,000 lead buyers. And then pricing is, you know, the scaling is the challenge when you start selling leads. And it's not really a big deal until you're doing 1 million or 1.5 million a month, right? On any given ad platform. And that's where the skill comes into place in what we do as marketers. So it's not, can I generate a lot of leads at the price I've already determined? It's, is that number something I can scale into and still have revenue or profit left over? And we don't look at that number for any other time period throughout the year other than Q4 and month 1 of Q1. So there's a 4-month window we look at to determine what our lead costs are for the year, because the demand on the ad platforms is so much higher that if I'm not priced for Q4 and month 1 of Q1, I'm going to spend a quarter of my year losing money. And I can't do that, right? We're going to be everybody's got to eat and clothe themselves and, whatever. So the trick is figuring out, one, what you can scale to with your current skill set, right? Without going over the top. We compete with people that can't scale all the time. And I always see it, they end up raising their lead prices and they lose half their book. And had they just started the right way, instead of trying to game the system in the front end by being cheap, that's the problem. The cost per lead to the client is such a horrible number. It's what your cost to acquire, because my $10 lead might cost you $1,000 to acquire a policy, where my $90 lead might cost you $180 to acquire the policy. So in the long run, $10 is costing you $800 more or $900 more than my $90 lead, right? So lead quality, conversion, all that kind of plays into that equation. And then the other part is, what's it worth to you, right? To invest the time that it takes to make it happen. How many people do you need to do that? You got to cover your nut. And then you got to make a little bit of money. The company's got to be healthy, all that kind of fun stuff. So I think it's a fine dance that you play with. And then how you verify your leads. So if you do on-platform leads, they're going to be a worse lead for a lot less money. And then it's a volume thing. And if your client's good with that, you're good with that. Our leads are SMS verified. So every lead we generate, we have gotten somebody to send in an SMS verification code to verify the legitimacy of their contact info. The beauty to that for us is, if I send you a bad lead, I'm replacing it, Todd, right? But if it's an SM verified, I have never replaced an SMS verified lead, because it costs me a couple more bucks. I lose a little bit in profit, but I'm not replacing bad data at a 20 or 30% clip that I've got to account for now in my lead cost to drive it up even higher. So we generate, I think, one of the highest converting leads in our space right now against people that can't SMS verify because they can't scale, right? So the first thing that you'll see marketers do is they'll get to that point and then they turn things off, and they've got to start, because they're trying to game what they're doing to meet that gap. So it's not really a direct answer of this is the formula. It's, what do you need to make? What's your profit center? And then what does Q4 look like for your industry, and price accordingly, so that you aren't making your clients feel like you're just being a jerk, right? Yeah, like, oh, I need a new Ferrari. Hey, leads are up $5. That's what they think. The reality is, I just lost $5. So if I don't charge it to you, I'm going to be out of business in a week and a half. So, you have to do, and it's really hard to do. So I would say, as you build that in, knowing that Q4 is going to be here every year, right? You don't have a choice. And this year was an anomaly, right? We went from political right to holiday. So it was like Q3, 4 in January. It was a long stretch this year. And, we just had lead cost drop the other day, and we lowered our lead prices for the next quarter as a thank you for our clients. We shaved off like $8 a lead. It's good. You do it when you can, and we do them as promos. And when you can't, you just can't. That's all there is to it. But if you do all the other things to support your people, they understand some of that as well. So it makes it a little bit more justifiable.
Gotcha. Yeah. Todd, this has been just one of those interesting conversations that I wish we had a whole nother hour, because I really want to pick your brain about these things. This is so cool. If people want to get a hold of you, figure out more about what you do, connect with you, where can they find you online?
So razorridge.com is an easy path. That's our website. You find our socials there. We have Razor Ridge Leads private group on Facebook. If you're in the insurance space, come hang out with us. I run all kinds of free training and sales calls. Those are posted on our YouTube channel at Razor Ridge Leads. Jump in. It's insurance focused, but it's sales centric. So the sales rules apply regardless of product. So if you just need some sales help, you can get free conversational sales training on our website. Again, it's geared towards life insurance sales, but it's true for selling. The reality is you open a sales call, and the only thing that's different from any product you sell is the meat and potatoes of that pitch. So come grab some stuff, hang out with us, see what we got. Maybe there's something in there that'll help you out. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. We will have the links for all of that in the show notes below this episode. Todd, thank you so much for being with us today. This was a blast.
Thanks, Todd.
You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.